I wanted to give you my first impressions about Steelrising, but I have to repeat the video, man, because I was bashing the game too hard, and I don't want to I don't want to be negative. Okay, I want to give you good information. And if you're clicking on this video, it's because you're probably excited about the game, or you want to get some good tips to play the game. So that's what I want to share. But I'm still gonna tell you what I like and what I don't like, and what are my first impressions. So here's what I'm gonna do on this game. I have a 3080 and a 5800 X3D. So I'm going to get 60 frames on this game, and I'm gonna use Motion Pro High on SDR. So on the PC, the game doesn't have HDR support, and it doesn't have auto HDR support from Windows yet, which I hope soon Windows gets the auto HDR support for this game, because the Windows 11 auto HDR is actually fantastic. But what I'm gonna do on this game, I'm using high settings. I am going to use 4K DLSS in quality, so I can get 60 frames. So lock the game to 60 using Riva Turner, get 60 Hz, 60 frames per second, and use Motion Pro High on Game Optimizer mode. That's the way I'm gonna play the game. So here's the problems that I have with the game. The game is not looking spectacular. Okay? So if you don't look spectacular, but you give me a great gameplay, I'm okay with that. I am loving Thymesia. That's the best gameplay ever, in my opinion. The game doesn't look spectacular, but it's not trying to, okay? But this game is trying to look spectacular. So let me calm down. So I don't want to transfer negativity, but I have to be honest. The game is trying to be spectacular, and it is not, because I see a lot of texture popping. I see shimmering. Even 4K DLSS, this staircase is shimmering a lot, and it's flickering on the distance. Is weird. So it's blurry, it's shimmering. I don't see that high resolution texture that is asking for 15 gigabytes. If you max out the graphics, the game is asking for 15 gigabytes. I don't see that because the textures are blurry, they are popping. And if you are an NVIDIA sponsored title, because this is an NVIDIA sponsored title because it's supporting DLSS and ray tracing. So how can you be sponsored by NVIDIA and require more than 12 gigabytes of VRAM to max out the game and run so poorly? Because the game is running terrible. It's dropping below 50 frames if you use 4K DLSS and you max out the graphics with a 3080 12 gigabytes. That doesn't make any sense. So how can you be NVIDIA sponsor and require to max out the textures at 3090? That makes no sense. And then on top of that, how can you try to be impressive? How can you try to make the game look impressive and not support HDR? Who is going to have? I wonder. I'm sure there might be some people with that setup. But how can you expect somebody with a 3090 Ti or 3090, which is probably a system that costs more than $5,000, how can you expect that person to play on SDR? Who is going to play on SDR after spending $5,000-$6,000 on a gaming PC? That makes no sense. Because, in my opinion, if you have a console and you're playing on HDR with this OLED TV, you are getting a much better visual quality experience than somebody playing on SDR, on IPS, on LCD monitor with a $6,000 gaming PC. Because HDR is by far a lot more impressive than any graphical settings. And I don't know how can the developers miss that. If you're trying to make your game look amazing, HDR, it has to be the first thing you think about, because it's a lot more important than anything else. So the game is trying to look spectacular, and it doesn't. It doesn't. The textures are looking blurry. They are popping. I see shimmering even at 4K DLSS. The hair, when you're looking at the character models, speaking, the hair looks with a lot of shimmering. The character models itself look last gen. So yeah, game is trying to look spectacular, and it doesn't. Now, how good is the gameplay? Well, I haven't played the game yet, but look at this. I'm getting 66 frames per second here. Look at the response time. How responsive the game feels. Pa pa, pa pa, pa pa. It's super laggy. So the game doesn't feel responsive. Even on a high-end gaming PC, it doesn't feel responsive. And it's not the frame rate. For example, if I use DLSS performance, okay, so I'm gonna use DLSS performance to get 100 frames. Okay, so at 120 frames right now, papa, papa, papa. That is better, papa, papa, papa. It doesn't feel responsive at 120 frames. So it's trying to look good. It doesn't. It's trying to play good. It doesn't. How responsive the game feels is very, very important for the gameplay. So I don't know what is this game trying to do. I hope it's good. I hope the game is good, and I'm probably gonna play it anyway. But if I can share something positive with you, is lock the game to 60 frames, because even at 4K DLSS performance, I am getting down to 90 frames. That makes no sense. This is like 1080p. How can I get 90 frames with this 3080 at 1080p? So what I would recommend you is use high settings, maybe DLSS. If you don't have a 30 DLSS capable card, then use FSR. We have the FSR 1.0. So lower that so you can get 60 frames locked. Lower the settings so you can get 60 frames locked, and then use Motion Pro High. That's what I would do. Use Motion Pro High. Or if the motion clarity doesn't bother you, or you cannot stand the flickering of Motion Pro at 60 hertz, 60 frames per second, then what I would do is I would use HLG. At least with HLG you can get HDR, so it looks better. So that's what I'm using right now, because the game is not supporting HDR from the console. So you go to settings, step on select mode, 111, 3111, and change that EOTF to HLG, and then use tone mapping off. That's what I'm using right now, and it looks a lot better than the SDR presentation. This TV on SDR, the only way I use it on SDR is to use Motion Pro High, and I have to turn on Module HDR on the service menu to get the brightness. Otherwise, it's too dark. Yeah, this TV really the two weakest aspects of this LG C1, in my opinion, are SDR brightness, and of course, sample and hold nature of the display means it's blurry. When you move the camera, it's blurry. So yeah, I'm definitely not playing at 60 on SDR. No way, because that's the two weakest aspects of this TV, in my opinion. So if I'm playing at 60, I have to use Motion Pro High. Otherwise, I need to have HDR at least. If not, then it's not good. Not good enough. So yeah, man, I hope the game is good. I want to like it. I was playing the game, doing parries is very easy, but it's not rewarding, at least at the beginning. You do the parries and the enemies are not affected a lot by it. So you can still, so you cannot do a finish or anything when you do the parry. So it's easy to do, but it's not affecting the enemies a lot. So I hope the game is good. That's what I want. But its first impressions are not spectacular, man. So yeah, let me know what you think. If you like this kind of videos, or if you would prefer me to not do first impressions and maybe do something more in depth after I try the game, look at the settings and give you exactly, hey, these are the settings that I'm using, do this and that, because I don't know. If you're thinking on purchasing the game, if you're a Souls fan, you have to get it. I mean, of course, I'm gonna play the game. I'm gonna beat it. I don't care about all the issues. Elden Ring technically is terrible, and for me, it's the best game ever. But technically, it's horrendous. Performance is trash, but it's 10 out of 10 in my opinion. So I'm still gonna play the game. Thymesia is mediocre in terms of the visual quality, but it has the best gameplay ever. The gameplay is the most important. But this game, it doesn't feel very responsive for the gameplay. So it's not spectacular. The gameplay is not responsive. It looks blurry. No HDR support. A lot of shimmering. So yeah, not a good start. Let's see if I can get some mods. Maybe remove TAA and maybe DLSS without that TAA is gonna look better, like I do on God of War. These games that come with forced TAA, you can remove it on the PC, and DLSS is still gonna work, and it's gonna look a lot sharper. So that's gonna be probably one solution, or maybe there's another way to fix the game, because yeah, I'm not a big fan of it right now. So let me know if you have any questions.